Hello, I'm Dallas Johnson. I hope that you're doing very well. I want you to be aware that I am switching over to a video podcast. If you followed my audio podcast here for the last 5 or 6 years, I am going to stop doing the audio podcast and I'm going to switch over to a video podcast only. So, this is the very first video podcast, and I hope that you find it very beneficial. I want to let you know how I got into this industry, how I got where I'm at today, and how you can take a similar path but not make the mistakes that I've made in this industry. First of all, I started out, I was a firefighter on a fire truck for many, many years. I spent 20 years on a fire truck. I was a full time firefighter. I loved being a firefighter. I looked forward to going to work every single day. Then, when you're a firefighter, you have some time off from the job because you work a 24-hour shift and then you have 48 hours off in most scenarios. So I would work my shift on the firehouse and I would have a 48-hour period to do other things. And I always ran other small businesses, but I'm a motorcycle enthusiast and I love motorcycles. I love being on two wheels. I'm very much a gearhead. I love cars. I love trucks, but I especially love motorcycles. And I started buying and selling motorcycles and realized that where I lived, I mean, you could only buy and sell five vehicles a year without a dealer's license. And I was getting up to the point where I had to get a dealer's license. And regardless of what your state requires on that, it's so much easier once you get your dealer's license to go ahead and do things legally. I wasn't doing things illegally, but you got to pay sales tax when you do not have a dealer's license. And one of the greatest benefits about having a dealer's license is that you don't have to pay sales tax when you're buying vehicles to resell. So I realized where I lived at that time. I lived way out in the sticks. I lived way out in a county. And I lived in a county that didn't have any type of zoning whatsoever. So I started doing a little bit of research and I realized that I could get a dealer's license at my home. Now, if you can get a license at your home, I'm going to recommend doing against, I'm going to recommend that you don't do what I did. And I'll talk about that here in just a moment. So I got a dealer's license at my home and I got into dealer auctions and started looking for some motorcycles. And at that time, I didn't realize this that there are certain dealer auctions that specialize in motorcycles on certain days. But the one that I was at didn't have a lot of motorcycles. And when a motorcycle would come through the lanes, it just seemed like it was crazy. It was almost they were giving almost retail prices for these motorcycles. So I got my dealer's license to buy and sell motorcycles. Realized the dealer auctions at that time did not have a lot of inventory for me. But I also noticed that cars were selling extremely cheap at these dealer auctions. So I thought, you know what? Let's make some money with this thing. So I started buying some cars and I started out at a very, very low, very, very low price point. I was buying vehicles for about two to $2,500. And when you're buying a vehicle for two or $3,000, especially at a dealer auction, it always needs something. So that's one thing I want to let you always know. When you're buying vehicles at dealer auctions, rarely are they retail ready. I've always planned on spending $200 to $300 on just about any vehicle I have bought at a dealer auction. If you've got a vehicle you buy at a dealer auction that is totally retail ready, you're going to pay for it. But what I have found out, when you buy vehicles low that maybe need a couple of things, maybe they need a set of tires. Maybe they need a new windshield. I remember one time I bought a Nissan Altima that needed a bearing and it needed a windshield. Now that seems like a lot. I ended up putting about almost $500 into it, but I ended up making a nearly $3,000 profit. And I'll talk about that. That was one of my first profits in this industry. So that just kind of gives you an idea. If you are willing to turn a wrench a little bit, I mean, you can really cash out for the vehicles you buy at a dealer auction. So I started buying vehicles in the low two to threes, started making a little bit of money. I did start out with a $25,000 floor plan, and a floor plan is a loan for your inventory. And shortly thereafter, I increased that to $50,000. I started buying and selling some vehicles. And at that time, I was selling all my vehicles on Craigslist and eBay. Believe it or not, back in the old days, dealers sold all their vehicles mainly on eBay is where you put all your inventory. Now things are totally changing where as a licensed dealer, you're going to sell vehicles on cars.com, autotrader.com. Marketplace is a great place to put your vehicles as well. But with that being said, started buying vehicles, selling vehicles, making some money. One thing I was very proud of is I paid that floor plan off very quickly. I mean, within a few months, I paid that floor plan off. And after my first, I don't know, it was about 8 or 9 months in business, I was able to pay off that $50,000 floor plan. And I had a cash inventory from then on out. I was very proud to have a cash inventory. And when you have a cash inventory, you don't owe any money whatsoever on your vehicles. You make the most money. And I strongly encourage you to always consider having a cash inventory, even if you got to start out with a small floor plan. And I want to give you a heads up as well. and I'll get back into my history, but when you go into a dealer auction, they're going to dangle a $250,000, $300,000 floor plan in front of you. Don't do that. I strongly encourage you to not even consider doing that. I strongly consider you to go into a dealer auction. Start small. Keep your debt low. And the reason for this, I've lost count of the times that I've saw someone in my dealer training courses that I've held all over the country get their license, and I'll drive by their lot, a week later, and they've got, a week or two later, and they got 40 or 50 cars on the lot, balloons flying all over the place, salespersons running all over the place. And then I'll drive by maybe a month later and that lot is closed, the building is for lease. And there's only one reason for that. And that is they got into too much debt and weren't able to pay their floor plan. So keep your debt low. If you do get a floor plan, keep it manageable. I've got some other videos to show you how to get the best floor plan at the best rates. So we'll talk about that in some other video podcasts as well. So I started increasing my buys a little bit, and I got into a point where I started buying lease returns. And, when you go to the dealer auction, there's certain days where lease returns are coming through the lane, whether it's Ford, Toyota, Honda, maybe there's some repos coming through there as well. So I got to the point where at that time I was buying vehicles wholesale in the $9,000 to $10,000 range. I was marking them all up. If I bought a vehicle, for $9,000, I was marking it up to $13,995. And there's a real psychology in pricing, and I talk about that in another video as well. You want to have a lot of nines in your vehicle. So there are times I would have folks that would not even negotiate, or I put a price on, on eBay or whatever, and that was the price. And I had folks from all over the country come to my little house out in the country and buy the vehicles. I lived on a gravel road, and that's one of the worst things as well about having a dealer's license when you live on a gravel road, because your vehicles are horrendously dirty at all times. And I hated having dirty vehicles, but that's just the way it was. And I actually would have folks that would want to take a drive first, and I mean, they would just drive down the road and get it all trashed. So that's another reason I'm going to tell you not to go get your license out in the sticks. So I started doing that, and if I hadn't made, there still are some times you will take a vehicle back to the auction. It's not very often, but it can happen. If I hadn't made, I'd always shoot for 3,000 to 4,000 markup and be willing to negotiate down. But when you have set prices on AutoTrader, Cars.com, things like that, you're going to get the price that you want. And always remember during the negotiation that you control the cards. You hold the vehicle. You control the negotiations. I got another video on that as well. So I was usually marking my vehicles up $3,000 to $4,000. And if sometimes though, I had to mark them down. If I'd been sitting on a vehicle for 2 or 3 months, I'd mark it down. And there were times I might have only made like $1,000 on a vehicle. And there are still some rare scenarios where I would actually take that vehicle back to the dealer auction. That was not very often. And there were times I sold a vehicle back at a dealer auction lower than what I had, for less than what I paid for it, which is not a good thing. But that is a rare scenario. But I want you to be aware that it can't happen. Once you get into the industry, you're going to know when to buy and when to sell. So I started really learning about this business, and you're going to get baptized in fire, because when you start, you are going to learn the business very fast. On the first couple sales, you're going to say, okay, well, hey, I know this industry. So that's how I got into this industry. I really enjoy telling people how to get into the industry, and started telling some firefighters and some other coworkers about how to get their license. And all of a sudden, I kind of started showing folks how to get licenses. And I'm going to come right out and say it. I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it. I've taken every single note from every single state that I've got a course in, and show you how to get your license from scratch. So, if you don't know how to get your dealer's license whatsoever, then I'm going to show you my official website. You can go to dealerslicense.com, and I've got a lot of courses there for you. Hopefully that'll help you out. So I started helping other folks get their license, and shortly thereafter, I decided to pursue state contracts. And this is something that actually took years for me to do. You'll see some of my approved courses. Some of those courses took 2 years to get approved by state agencies, to where I would start that course from scratch with all the exact paperwork that you need to apply for your license, and then submit it to a state, and state agencies are very, very slow. So some of these courses, they were 2 years in the process of actually getting approved by state. So with that being said, I hope that I can help you get into this incredible industry. I've been helping entrepreneurs just like you for many, many years get into this industry. I've seen entrepreneurs take my courses, whether it's an in-person class or an online training course. I've seen them take their incomes to whole new levels. I have seen, folks that rose up out of the absolute worst neighborhoods in the entire United States. And I've given a lot of courses in the worst neighborhoods in the entire United States. I've driven into hotel meeting rooms that were in the absolute worst parts of cities, and I've had those classes full with entrepreneurs that wanted to take their income to a whole new level. I've also seen successful entrepreneurs, maybe they're already selling and buying vehicles, take their income to a whole new level as well. This is a very high profit industry, but but there's a lot of regulatory oversight because unfortunately there has been a lot of fraud in this industry. And unfortunately, I do believe that there were some folks years ago that got their dealer's license with the sole intent to lie to a customer, not disclose any type of information whatsoever on the vehicle defects, and then get that customer out the door and then lie to the next customer. And those days are gone. I tell you right now, your state agency is going to have your dealer's license revoked within 2 months or less by fraudulent sales. So what you're going to find in the courses that I provide: compliance, ethics, those are the top components of my training programs. Number one, you cannot keep a license if you don't follow the rules and guidelines. All 50 states have totally different rules and guidelines. There are some that are similar, but the majority of states are completely different. So you can't, get your dealer's license in one state and take that license over to another state. All states have their own license. So I want to make sure that you're very aware of that. So with that being said, I think my courses are going to really help you, number one, maintain compliance, and they're also going to help you keep profits as high as you can. So it's all about ethics and integrity. You want to get full disclosure on your vehicles, and you also want to be aware that what I have found in this industry, the dealers with the highest levels of ethical standards have by far the highest profits. Because what you're going to find out in this industry, when you are brutally honest with the customer and you let them know everything that you know about a vehicle before the test drive, when you build that credibility, like say for example, when I was giving a test drive, I tell the customer, hey, this is this is pulling to the left a little bit here. I found the engine's making a little bit of noise, and there's a dent here on the back left fender. I want to make sure that you're aware of that before the test drive. And when you shoot your customer straight, you're going to have entire families that will come back and buy multiple vehicles from you. You will have great online reviews, and you're also going to find the same family will come in and buy many, many vehicles from you again because they trust you. So ethics and integrity will take you to the very top. Now, let's get real back here to the end, towards the end of the podcast. As I stated earlier, I started at my home residence, but that really, really did limit my income. That really limited what I could do. It was a great way to get my foot in the door, but shortly thereafter, I found a location, a full retail location with a lot. And this is what I'm going to recommend that you do. I'm going to recommend, even if your state agency does possibly allow you to have a dealer's license at your home, most states do not allow it. I want you to be aware that there are states that allow it and there are states that don't. So first of all, if you're considering getting a dealer's license at your home, you have to meet local zoning. The reason I was able to get a license at my home is because there was no zoning at that time in my county. And there's not a lot of counties that don't have zoning. And all cities have some type of zoning, to my knowledge. So I'm strongly going to encourage you to go and get a location, away from your home. You would not believe all the times that I've spoke with someone either on the phone or via email, and they'll say, well, I want to get in this industry, but I don't want to have to go get an office or a lot. I want to do it from my home. You are so limited on what you can do from your home. When you take your business to either a small office or an office with a lot, you'll take your business to a whole new level. I guarantee you, I know this. I've done this. I've seen the dealers that try to operate at home. Even if their zoning allows it, they're not making the money that somebody is in an office or in an office with a lot. And even if you have to spend to go out and get an office, you should be able to get an office for $200 to $300 a month. That might seem like a lot of money if you're not in this industry, but it's a fraction of your income once you get into this industry. So with that being said, you can go out and get an office or get even if you're going out and spending $1,000 a month or, $1,500 or $2,000 in a metro area for a small building with a lot. You don't have to have a great big lot. Only a couple of states require very large lots. Most states will allow you to have 2, 3, maybe 5 spaces at the very maximum. There are a couple of other states that have larger lot requirements, but the majority of states either require 1 to 5. So if you can find a location in your area, I guarantee you, you will make that money back every month. Because even, let's say, for example, you're spending $2,000 a month. I mean, if you're not making $2,000 per vehicle sale, you're not marking your vehicles up, and you're going to learn the ropes pretty quick, and you should be making more than that. There are some sales that you want, but the majority of sales you want. So you should be easily able to pay for one vehicle one vehicle profit should pay for your rent for that month. So I strongly encourage you, even if your state does allow you to have a license at your home, and there are many states that do. Some states will allow you to have a license at your home if zoning allows it. Some other states will allow you to have a license at your home if zoning allows it, and the license is in an outbuilding. And some states strictly prohibit you from actually obtaining a license at your home. So I do strongly encourage you to take the steps not only to get your license, but consider going out and renting a location. I started in my home, but I wish I would have started at a retail location because my income would have been a lot higher, a lot earlier that way. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Once again, this is my name is Dallas Johnson. I am the lead instructor of the Automobile Dealer Training Association. My personal website is dealerslicense.com. If you have any questions on how to get your dealer's license and get into this incredible industry, I'm going to show you how. There are states that do require you to take training, and there are states that do not. Regardless, if you're in a state that doesn't even require you to take training, I strongly encourage you to take a training course. And the reason I make this recommendation, like the training courses that I've designed, you'll start from scratch, and I show you how to fill out every single document. And here's another little secret to you. There are states that require you to collect sales tax, which is very, very easy to do. And if you're not following your rules and guidelines, even if you haven't taken a course, you can get fines from your state. And on a final note, that's how I learned this business. Fines from my state agencies, dealer's license section. So if you live in a state that does not have a training course requirement, I strongly encourage you to take a training course because I learned the industry by getting fines from the state. So I know this for a fact. In the states that do not have training course requirements for dealers, a lot of dealers get fines, and you end up paying a lot more in fines than you would have paying for a training course. So I've got courses for all over the country. Hopefully they're helpful for you. You can go to dealerslicense.com. And once again, my name is Dallas Johnson, and I am with the Automobile Dealer Training Association, and you can find all of my courses at dealerslicense.com. I want to wish you the very best of luck with this business.